Keller's and Russell's Learn to Read Latin, 2nd edition. Don't be lazy. Speak Latin. Or a thought on pronunciation. In studying Latin with others, I have heard that there is an ambiguity, and thereby a difficulty in understanding Latin, in hearing it, and in how to speak it. Based on the best reconstruction we have of how classical Latin was and is spoken, Keller and Russell provide, in their introduction, a description of each Latin vowel sound, in association with the vowel sound's particular Latin written letter, and in some cases, in association with the vowel sound's particular pair of Latin letters considered together, called diphthongs. I think that if we were to focus on the 3 following cases, then the ambiguity, and thereby the difficulty in understanding Latin, in hearing it, and in knowing how to speak it, is solved. The Latin vowel sound associated with the Latin written letter A with no macron. The Latin vowel sound associated with the Latin written letter O with no macron. And the Latin vowel sound associated with the Latin written letter U with no macron. Keller and Russell provide an English vowel sound equivalent to each of these 3 cases, in their providing an English word wherein we hear what is at least very close to the reconstruction Latin vowel sound. For the Latin written letter A with no macron, we are offered the English word cup. Therefrom, the Latin vowel sound For the Latin written letter O with no macron, the English word caught. The Latin vowel sound aw. For the Latin written letter U with no macron, the English word put. The Latin vowel sound So, for each and every time, except in the case of diphthongs, which are another matter, that I have the Latin written letter A with no macron, I associate the Latin vowel sound For each and every time that I have the Latin written letter O with no macron, I associate the Latin vowel sound aw. For each and every time that I have the Latin written letter U with no macron, I associate the Latin vowel sound I tell myself, don't be lazy in pronunciation. And I tell myself, remember, I am no longer speaking English, where, by the way, we as native English speakers often round out these 3 vowels in words to no significance in the word's sense or meaning. A common feature of English and of a tendency comfortable to native English speakers. But rather, that I am speaking Latin, where the changing of one of these 3 vowels can, and often does, have the capacity to change the meaning or sense of the word. To try an example, in Keller's and Russell's section 46, the intensive adjective ipsa, ipsum, we see that the accusative singular feminine is to be pronounced ipsum. And we see that the accusative singular masculine, or that the accusative singular neuter, is to be pronounced ipsum. Again, if ipsum or ipsum were to be an English word, then the demonstrated difference in pronunciation in the 2 words or 3 depending on your figuring of it, would not matter. Each would be heard the same, perhaps with a peculiar accent, but of no matter to sense or meaning. That change of sound would have no effect in English, while in Latin, the difference demonstrated here, as in many other examples, would matter. The principle of these 3 cases, of careful attention in consistent association of each Latin vowel sound to its particular Latin written letter, might be applied in other cases of Latin, perhaps such as the same for the Latin written letter E with no macron, and of the Latin written letter I with no macron, associated vowel sounds e and I. But for now, I think that we might thus remove ambiguity and thereby difficulty in understanding Latin heard and spoken.